Domestic violence not only affects the victim, but very often the friends, the family, the loved one, the community around that person. We're here to talk about a really important topic with Lisa Marchese, a former Deputy Attorney General here in Maine, along with Regina Rooney of the Maine Coalition to End Domestic Violence. Really appreciate you both coming today because this is such an important topic. We want to talk first about domestic abuse, domestic violence. It is the leading cause of homicide in this state. And Lisa, I know you're part of a panel that is a really important, has a really important mission. Can you tell us about that?
Sure. In 1997, the legislature created the Domestic Abuse Homicide Review Panel, and the purpose of the panel is to retrospectively look at closed homicide cases. As you may know, in many years, 50% of all homicides are domestic violence related. So the panel, who's made up of law enforcement, prosecutors, domestic abuse advocates, child welfare folks, doctors and nurses, all professionals, and they meet on a monthly basis to review these cases, make recommendations and observations about what systems could be changed or what could be changed, even legislatively, that might lead to just better safety for victims.
One of the things you do look at also is the sort of the friends, the family, the support who victims often turn to, but they don't always know what to do or how to do it. What has the panel found when it comes to those friends, family, loved ones, coworkers even?
Right. Well, you just said it exactly. People don't know what to do. Yeah. They want to help. I've tried a number of domestic abuse homicides, and you interview family and colleagues and they will say, I knew he was going to kill her and I just didn't know what to do. So the panel has made recommendations that people contact the Maine Coalition to End Domestic Violence and to seek help, because there are coalitions, there are resource centers around the state that will help people at no cost. And there's many, they will help them safety plan, and they're a wonderful resource. And I think a lot of bystanders don't recognize that the resource centers are not just for victims of domestic violence, but for people who want to help them as well.
I think that's an excellent point. So say you do have a coworker or a loved one who, someone has come to and they are so worried about them. What is that process like? How can they find these resource centers? And walk us through the process of that.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think the great thing is that the resource centers are available 24/7 through their helplines. And so someone can call that line, and what's going to happen is they'll get a call back from a trained advocate. And that advocate's going to talk to them about what's going on. And they're going to be able to share about this situation, and they can share whatever information they want. They don't have to give names. They can spill it all out there. It doesn't matter because it's all going to be really confidential. I think one of the hard things for friends, family, bystanders is that feeling of who can I talk about this with, it's not going to get out or it's not going to cause some other problem. The Domestic Violence Resource Center advocates are going to be able to listen. They're going to keep that confidential. They're going to hear what's going on. They're going to help sort through what might be useful. How can you get this person you're worried about connected to help? And they're also going to support the caller because it's really hard.
Emotionally draining, right?
It's terrible to be worried about someone in your life who's experiencing this when you know the risks.
So going back to that friend, family support person, what are some of the red flags that they can be looking for when talking to someone who may be experiencing domestic abuse?
Well, what the panel has found is, the most telltale sign is some sort of physical abuse. But that doesn't always happen, right?
Can you talk a little bit about that? Physical abuse from very extreme. Obviously, we don't want to get into homicide. We're trying to prevent the homicide. But what might physical abuse look like?
It could look like bruises, it could look like a black eye, it could look like someone doesn't really want to talk about what's going on. I'm sure, Regina, you've seen even more examples than that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's often maybe the thing like somebody doesn't want to explain, or they don't want to, they just can't explain it. I think there's so many other things though that aren't about physical
Well, and that's the
violence.
thing. So that again is moving toward
Yeah.
more of the extreme cases. But what are some of the other signs to look for as a friend or a family member?
I mean, I think if you can pay attention and see that someone is pulling away, if there's a sense of isolation, like that person is, and if you can pinpoint that isolation is being driven by the partner, right? That the partner suddenly doesn't want to come to Thanksgiving with the family anymore, doesn't want you to spend that time with your friends, doesn't want you going out, is constantly interrupting those relationships that a victim has with their support system, that's strategic. That's strategic because the more support systems feel like, oh, we're at a distance here, we don't know what's going on, the better off for the person who wants to control that victim.
And there's financial abuse as well. I mean, that also ties into this, wouldn't it?
Yeah, sure. I mean, domestic abuse is a lot about power and control, and we talk about this. So the control over the person, but other signs might be stalking, people missing work, all of those things. And then if someone is fortunate enough to have a victim share that they are being abused, that's when you can really help them out. But even if they don't share, but you suspect, it's still good to call one of the resource centers.
You know, I think it's important to highlight too, we often, right or wrong, think of male abusing female.
Right.
Not that that's right, but I think that traditionally, you know, that's kind of where your mind goes. I think it's really important to highlight this can be female versus male, male.
People of all genders
Right.
experience and perpetrate abuse, for sure.
That's exactly right. It's one of the observations of the homicide review panel. I think there was a misunderstanding for years that the resource centers didn't help men, but they absolutely do, and that's important for people to know.
What kind of differences do you notice when it comes to supporting men through abusive situations?
I mean, I think that for anyone who is not sort of a woman experiencing abuse from a male partner, there's already a sense of struggle of, am I going to be believed? Is what's happening to me really abuse? Am I going to have to prove this in a different way because it doesn't look the way we often think of domestic violence?
So going back to the friends, the loved one, the supporters, what are some, and you alluded to this, it can be very stressful for them to feel like, you know, they're hearing, like they're internalizing some of the trauma that a friend or a loved one may be experiencing. So these resource centers can also help them navigate that. And what might that look like?
I think often when we're worried about someone in our lives, we want to get them out of that situation
Quickly.
as fast as we can.
Yes.
We want to take action as fast as we can. We want to rescue them. We want something to happen immediately. And unfortunately, that's often not possible. That's often not a safe, there's not a safe option for that to happen, or a practical option for that to happen. And so I think a lot of what advocates do with concerned family members, friends, et cetera, who call, is helping navigate that tension. Like, I need to do something right now to solve this. I'm really worried. This is really dangerous. This person deserves better than this. We need to take action. And it's like, let's slow down, because what we need to do to be helpful to this person is to recognize where they're at and take our cues from them. But we can also, I think, support the very human urge that comes from within a loved one to go, oh my gosh, something about this needs to change, right? So if we support that, we can get through it to a place where we can be more authentically helpful to victim survivors.
What's the one thing that you, Lisa, first to you, really wish people would know when it comes to domestic abuse?
Just one.
No, I know there are many, and if you have multiple things, if you have a couple of things, you know, certainly want to make sure that we're getting it all to light.
Right.
But
well, I mean, I appreciate that we've done the focus on the number of resources that's available. But the one thing that has come through from the panel that always bothers me is that sometimes people ignore threats to commit suicide. And what we have found is there's a short leap from suicide to homicide. So I'd like to say to people, if you have someone in your life that's threatening to commit suicide, don't ignore it. Because that person, in one of our reports or one of our biennials, 70% of the people that committed homicide had previously threatened suicide. That's a really high number. So suicide threats need to be taken seriously and not just old grumpy Uncle Joe or something. They're serious and they can be a precursor to homicide. So don't ignore signs of domestic violence, and suicide is important to pay attention. Threats of suicide are important to pay attention to.
Oh, that's an excellent point. And Regina, to you.
You know, I wish that everyone would, I think we've done a good job in this movement of helping people realize that we all probably know someone or maybe are someone who's experienced this and been victimized by this, but I think we should also reckon with the fact that we also, most of us know people who are perpetrating this kind of abuse too.
Great point. What happens, what about if you think a friend, colleague is actually perpetrating the abuse?
I mean, I think we as family members, friends, community members have opportunities to say to those people, wow, I saw the way you spoke to your partner. You're not going to do that at my house, you know? I've heard of people whose friends sort of clocked what was going on, and they just sort of would, you know, maybe keep that abusive person busy over here so that that victim had a space and time to plan, right? So I think we are really never gonna fix this and solve this if we keep thinking that abusers are the boogie people in the bushes. Like that's not who we're dealing with. We're dealing with our siblings, our cousins, our buddies, our colleagues. Like that's who is doing this behavior.
Lisa, is there anything else from working all these years on these panels that really sticks out to you?
Generally speaking, about 50% of our homicides are gun related. They're committed with a firearm. And I think it's really important for the public to know and people to be aware that if there is an abuser in your life, if there's someone you know that is committing abuse, they have firearms, you need to work with law enforcement, perhaps the resource centers, to try to get the firearms out of the house. Because firearms are easily accessible, and we know that they cause homicide in a majority of the cases. And so getting firearms out of the house is tremendously important if you suspect there's abuse going on.
Have you, on a personal level, ever, helped somebody through a situation like this?
I don't know anyone who does this work who hasn't. And it's what makes me feel deeply empathetic for those people that are calling the helpline and saying, gosh, I'm worried about my whoever it is. What can we do? Because I've been in that space as well. And it's really hard when you feel like you're alone with it. And I guess I just want people to know they don't have to be.
They don't have to be. In fact, there are resource centers there to help. How do people get in touch with those resource centers?
They can call the number on the screen, and there's somebody available 24/7.
All right. Regina, thank you so much. Lisa, thank you so much. Certainly appreciate the work you both are doing. Such good work, such important information. And of course, we will have more information as well on WGME.com.